have a room full of. All right. Good morning, everyone. It's Wednesday, March 3rd. We're here for a joint committee of the Environment and Natural Resources Committee. We're assembled electronically today for the purposes of inviting public comment on legislation, particularly LD 390. Before we get started, I just want to share some information related to the fact that this meeting is being conducted using an electronic format. We're being live streamed on the committee's YouTube channel. That means anyone who's participating via Zoom can be seen and heard if their microphone is unmuted and their video is on. People on the Zoom meeting waiting to testify cannot be seen or heard until they are called on to speak. This meeting will be recorded and available to view on the committee's YouTube channel soon after the meeting has been conducted. In a moment, I will have everyone introduce themselves as per usual. But before we get started with that, if you just want to make sure the name on your Zoom square is appropriate, and if you are in the attendee space and you're not labeled with your name, if you could relabel with your name so we know that you are registered to testify and your name matches the name you registered with. That would be helpful. All right, let's go ahead and do some introductions. We'll start with Representative Bell.
Good morning, Arthur Bell, State Representative from House District 47 here in Yarmouth, representing Yarmouth, Chesapeake, and Long Island. Good morning.
And Representative Ziegler.
Good morning, Paige Ziegler. I represent District 96, the towns of Belmont, Liberty, Lincolnville, Montville, Morrill, Palermo, and Searsmont in Waldo County.
And Representative Dudera.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Vicki Dudera. I represent the citizens of the towns of Camden, Rockport, and Islesboro.
And Representative Johansson.
Good morning, everyone. I represent House District 145, the 18 organized towns between Bridgewater and Sherman.
And Representative Gramlich.
Thank you, Senator. Good morning. I am Lori Gramlich, and I represent the lovely seaside community of Old Orchard Beach.
And Representative Bloom.
Good morning. I'm Lydia Bloom. I represent House District 3 in York.
Representative O'Connor.
Good morning. I'm Beth O'Connor. I represent the individuals of House District 5, which is Berwick and part of North Berwick.
Representative Hanley.
Good morning. I'm Jeff Hanley. I represent District 87, which is Pittston, Alna, Wiscasset, and Randolph.
Senator Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Rick Bennett. I have the honor of representing 13 towns in the foothills and lakes region of the beautiful parts of Western Maine. Thanks.
And Chairman Tucker.
Good morning. My name is Ralph Tucker. I am in the Maine House of Representatives, House District 50, which is Brunswick. Thank you.
And we're also joined today by Dan Tartikoff and Deirdre Snyder, who are our analysts from OPLA, and Sabrina Carey is our clerk, and we are always grateful for their help. And I'm Stacy Brenner. I represent Senate District 30, which is all of Gorham, most of Scarborough, and part of Buxton. So with that, we'll get started with our public hearing for LD 390. And as we, just one reminder, as you get moved over from the attendee space into the committee space, there will be a moment where you feel like you've been disconnected. So please be patient and hold on, and then you will notice the screen shifting a bit and you'll pop open into the committee space. So just a little warning about what to expect. And again, this format is new for all of us, so we ask for everyone's patience as we find our way through each day in our virtual space together. And again, the chat function, for those of you who like to use the chat function, will only be used for logistical and organizational purposes for the meeting. It will not be used for any substantive conversation related to the legislation that we are discussing. Okay, so our sponsor for the bill is Representative Perry. Let's see if she's here. Do we see her yet? Dan and Deirdre and Sabrina, do we see her in the space yet? Is she the person on the phone? Do we know?
I don't know if that's her on the phone. I don't see her otherwise.
Are we expecting her? She is
signed up to testify.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Do we want to give her a ring or try to reach out to her? Is that an option? She might be having a little technical trouble finding us this morning.
Sabrina, do you mind trying to reach out and see if that phone number is her calling in?
I will do my best, yes.
So we'll just be patient for a moment as we sort out.
Her number, I have her number. I can send something to her.
That'd be fantastic. Thank you, Representative Bloom.
I just received a text message. I cannot get on by Zoom problem. I hope that Sabrina can help out with that. Or
The
Lydia.
number ends in 7,000, if that's helpful.
Yep. 214-7000.
Sabrina's on the phone with her now. Hopefully it's just a matter of locating the Zoom link in the very full inbox. Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Representative Hanley.
would this be a good time to discuss the letter that I asked Dan to put together concerning a solid waste generation disposal capacity report?
That's
He needed to know if the committee has accepted the letter as he wrote it.
great way to fill the time. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Yes, I read it over and I feel comfortable with it, us moving forward, sending that letter to receive more information about waste to power generation, waste to energy. How do others feel? Has everyone had a chance to read the letter?
I agree. It was very, very well done.
Yeah.
Sorry, I haven't sent the letter out to anyone. I wasn't expecting the committee to take it up yet. So I think the three of you and Senator Bennett may be the only ones who've read it.
Okay, all right.
If you want to take that up now, I can send it out.
Yeah, that would be great. That would be great. I'm sorry, Dan, I had thought that went to the whole committee. My apologies.
Yeah, I assumed everyone had already received it.
Yeah. I mean, perhaps you can just explain again to everyone what you were asking for and.
I'm sorry, my earbud fell out at that moment. Were you talking to me, Madam Chair?
Yeah, perhaps if you just want to remind everyone what the essence of the letter is about, the request.
Yes, I'll be glad to do that. In the report, there was a report of how much waste was consumed by 2 waste burning generators and a food waste to energy generator. And I thought it'd be a good idea if we had a report back on the amount of energy produced by each one of these, because that would be relative to the whole discussion of what you do with waste. You turn it into energy. I thought we should realize how much energy we actually are producing with it. And I asked for that to be part of the report from now on.
Great. Is everybody comfortable with that?
I think that it would be also nice to know if they're about the any of the pollution from that waste to energy generation. And I had asked last week about that to make sure that we're keeping track of that and what regulations are applying to that.
So are you asking for that to be included in this letter, Senator or Representative Bloom?
I just want the information, whether it's included in this letter or not. I just think that that additional information would be relevant to this committee.
Is there any discussion about that?
I think that we're unwinding the letter that was very carefully drafted so as not to step on the feet of DEP, but to just simply get some information about some rather narrow statistics. And I think opening it up now to other considerations of effects on pollution and so forth and so on requires a larger discussion.
If I can real quick, I believe the question that Representative Bloom posed during the briefing, the response from DEP was the emissions are an Air Bureau issue, and we were hearing from the Waste Bureau. And I don't think there was an issue in providing more information on that. And I can certainly follow up for you via just an email. I think they could provide that information and more data. I believe Representative Hanley's intent here is to suggest this data should be included in future versions of this solid waste generation and disposal capacity report. And it sounds like you just want that information about the air emissions presently, but not necessarily on a continuing basis.
Well, the air emissions is included in that report. So it does discuss that they are in that report. It says the air emissions are that it's consistent with the regulations. That they're being consistent. So they're not. So it is a part of the report. So it's not like adding something else. It's just clarifying what it is and making sure that That's all. And absolutely, if you want to just get me that information separately, that's fine, but it is part of the report.
Okay, so let's move forward with submitting that letter to DEP as written. And then Representative Bloom, we will make sure you receive the information you've requested. Sure. Okay, it looks like Representative Perry is present on the phone and we are, oh, where'd she go? Maybe she's in that interim space between phone and committee, unless we lost, did we lose her? Gosh, she was just there. Boy, isn't this fun? All right. Sabrina, do you know what happened to her? She was just there. Oh, she's back. Let's move her in before we. Welcome, Representative Perry. Can you hear us? See if we can unmute you. Sabrina, are you able to manually unmute Representative Perry on the phone?
I gave her permission to talk, so now she just needs to unmute her own phone, I think.
Okay. I think is it *6 she pushes or *9? Do you remember?
I'm not sure. I haven't called in myself. Okay. You'll push.
Oh, okay, I found it.
Yeah, you're here.
Oh my goodness, this has been an ordeal.
Welcome. We're glad to have you. Take a deep breath.
So.
Whenever you're ready.
Yes, I am ready. I'm sorry for all of this. This has been a interesting morning. So, good morning, Senator Brenner and Representative Tucker and members of the Environmental and Natural Resources Committee. I'm Representative Ann Perry, and I represent 9 communities in Washington County, and I am here to introduce LD 390, an act regarding the mapping of shoreline zones. This issue was first brought to my attention by Judy East, who was then director of Washington County Council of Governments, and Dr. Tora Johnson, a professor of geographic information systems at the University of Maine at Machias. They were working with mapping and zoning for the communities in Hancock and Washington counties. They found that municipalities were having difficulty following the requirements because they were difficult to understand and thus follow. As we worked together on this bill, it became very apparent that this was not only a local problem, but affected both the DEP and local communities who are having difficulty working with an out-of-date law. The current statute and resultant guidelines can contain definitions that are both ambiguous to interpret and difficult to use in a GIS environment when creating municipal shoreland zoning maps. The proposed changes to the law in this bill clarify these definitions and provide municipalities with an efficient and technically tractable means of preparing GIS-based shoreland zoning maps. Dr. Johnson has an extensive experience trying to manage this effectively via the University of Maine Machias programs and is a great resource for anyone wanting more technical information on the complications of mapping shoreland zoning for localities, especially on a regional basis. I learned a great deal from her and Judy East. I want to thank you for your consideration and they ask that you vote ought to pass on 390. And I would gladly try to answer any questions, but I'm not sure I have any.
Are there any questions for Representative Perry at this time? I'm not seeing any. Thank you so much, Representative Perry.
You're welcome. Thank you. I'm glad I finally made it.
We are as well. All right, then let's see. Do we have any other of our elected officials in the attendee space? Sabrina, I don't have anyone registered, but are there any last minute additions in there?
Not that I can see, no.
Okay, so then I think next up would be the department. Mr. Livesay is here from the DEP. Good morning.
Good morning. I made it through the portal.
You did. Welcome.
Thank you. Senator Brenner, Representative Tucker, committee members. I'm still Nick Livesay from the Department of Environmental Protection, where I'm the director of the Bureau of Land Resources. And I'm here today to speak in support of the intent of the bill, LD 390, but in opposition to the legislation. Shoreline zoning serves a number of important purposes. One is to promote environmental protection by requiring the identification of select valuable natural resources, establishing zoning districts around these resources, and enacting ordinance provisions that address the types, intensities, and location of development in these zones. LD 390 is intended to make these first two steps easier for municipalities, and that's something that we certainly support. Wetlands and streams are important natural resources, long recognized in Maine Shoreline Zoning Act. For example, for 30 years, the definition of freshwater wetland has remained the same. The expectation has been that municipalities will identify these resources and build shoreline zoning maps accordingly. LD 390 proposes to change how certain resources are defined, not because our scientific understanding of what constitutes a wetland or stream has changed, or because our appreciation of their value is any different, but because redefining would make mapping easier. For example, legislation redefines freshwater and forested wetlands based on available GIS data layers as opposed to observations on the ground. We support these efforts to make the development of shoreline zoning maps easier and more affordable. GIS mapping is certainly a very valuable and helpful tool. We anticipate it'll play an increasingly prominent role in our discussion around climate change, adaptation to sea level rise, and zoning. While GIS technology should inform our policy, it should not drive it. The department's concern with the present proposal is that the GIS data layers that would be used to define important natural resources, particularly the National Wetland Inventory maps for freshwater and forested wetlands, are not sufficiently accurate to reflect the actual existence and location of the wetlands on the ground. So the result is that areas with and without wetlands would be miszoned. The limitation of the existing GIS data and proposed approach also is reflected in the need to clean up the maps that would be generated using the proposed definitions. Our understanding is that the proposed exemption of lots from the resource protection zone, where less than 2,500 square feet of the lot would be zoned resource protection, is based on GIS functionality and not so much science. The implication of the exemption aren't really clear to us, but it could be significant. Additionally, unanswered in the present legislation is what would happen to the towns that have developed and updated shoreline zoning maps based on the existing law. they be expected to change their maps, even if they're made less accurate, or they keep them the field verified maps that they have, and this would result in 2 classes of maps throughout the state. In closing, the department appreciates the desire of municipalities to find more efficient ways to develop shoreline zoning maps. And GIS mapping is a valuable tool, and opportunities may very well exist for using publicly available GIS layers to assist municipalities with their zoning efforts. However, given the limitations on the GIS data layers proposed to define important natural resources, particularly freshwater and forested wetlands, the department opposes LD 390. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Representative Bloom.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for being here. So GIS is extremely important, and having mapping, really good mapping, is very important to the state of Maine. What do you propose then, if you really support the goal of this bill? How would you propose us to be able to help the towns?
So I don't have the silver bullet answer to that. And I think we heard earlier that one of the drivers behind the legislation is Judy East. I had a good discussion with her the other day, although it was filled with sort of the technology glitches that we have. I had the worst internet I've had in a year at home, so it was patchy, but we talked for quite a while. And I don't think that she or I have a solution to this. GIS is a powerful tool. These sort of generally available data layers like the NWI maps, I think that they are improving, but they're keyed off of, and there'll be other experts who can tell you exactly how they're actually done, but they're keyed off of aerial imagery and photography and the like, and we're getting better and better with that, and we're probably going to get even better with new LiDAR data. But now when I talk to folks who go out in the field and look for where wetlands are and aren't, they'll say, I'll take an NWI map with me as a starting point, but I get there and I may find a wetland where there's none shown in the map, or vice versa. And it's just sort of a coarse tool. And so I think how we can sort of take advantage of the data layers that exist today, how we can capitalize on the improved data layers that I'm sure are coming, and they will probably come not on a uniform basis across the state. Is my experience with some of the other aerial imagery that's done. It's focused on more populated areas first, oftentimes. And so I think we do need to be sort of mindful and know what's out there. And I would be curious to talk to both the mapping people and the science folks to see what opportunities we have for capitalizing on presently available information. But I get nervous when we change definitions to align with maps that may not be accurate and sort of institutionalize inaccuracy. So looking at the data we have right now that may not be perfectly accurate and figuring out what can we do with that.
So, thank you. May I follow up, please? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Mr. Livesey, would it be then maybe a suggestion that further study is needed, that we need to understand better to answer the questions that you just posed, to be talking to the mapping people and to getting better answers so we can be more consistent?
Yeah, so I think further dialogue on this topic, I'm not volunteering for any study committee right now. This is my second bill that I've been before you, and the session is yet to come. We're going to have lots of discussion about climate change and other topics. So I don't want to overcommit either my resources or the department's resources, but certainly as part of the discussion with regard to shoreline zoning and in other discussions that we're having and I anticipate having that involve sort of the use of GIS as a tool, and a discussion about what data layers we have and don't have and how to fill in the gaps. I think there's some relationship there that goes beyond just the shoreline zoning piece. So yes, further, I'm very intrigued and recognize the value of GIS capabilities, and it's certainly appropriate to think about how we can, take advantage of new technology and new data in the shoreline zoning context. So I want to be part of that, and I'm not sure what the right way to shape that is.
And just one more question, please. So So it sounds like maybe a solution, since this is all going to be related to the climate plan as well, shoreline zoning and all of that, that this may be something that the science and technical group can take up on in the climate council to make a study of the GIS and everything that's going on with it. That might be a way of taking some pressure off of the DEP and putting it where we really need it, and putting it in the hands of people that's going to incorporate more than just shoreline zoning.
Yes, I mean, there is, I don't want to overstate the connection between shoreline zoning and climate change. There are certainly relationships, and there are certainly important shoreline zoning issues that exist separate and apart from climate change. I think that what some of the climate change discussions are going to shine a light on is the value of GIS capabilities. And so GIS is separate and apart from all the data that's put into these layers, but the spatial analysis that one can do today is really quite impressive. And I know that in my prior job, which is now Judy's current job at the Land Use Planning Commission, we dealt with a lot of large scale landscape issues, and being able to look at things with GIS and look at different data layers and manipulate that is really important. But then getting the data into the system is important. And I think there's a bigger discussion for, what role should the state play in gathering and analyzing some of this data. And it's not an area where I think we're not leading in that area.
Yes, Representative Ziegler.
I'm sorry, did you, Madam Chair, did you say my name?
I did. You have your hand up for a question?
I do. Thank you very much, and thank you for being here, Mr. Lifson. It talked about definitions being hard to follow. You were talking about GIS at a point where we can't really use it because it's a little too crude. Is there any way that we can facilitate a movement to redefine these so that municipalities, it's easier to read, or is that something that I'm missing in regards to what you just said?
I think so. I don't know all that folks are talking about when they're saying the definitions are difficult to understand. But I think one of the things that may be referenced here is language that deals with like the connected nature of some of the wetlands that we're talking about to surface water resources. And so sort of terminology that one might use in the field, like a scientist might use, is different from the language that somebody working with a GIS system would use to understand, is this wetland hydrologically connected to the lake? And I think that's maybe difficult. You'll hear, I'm assuming, from folks that are supportive of this legislation, and they'll probably be able to answer that better. I think that they're talking about things like that. And my suggestion, what I think is the appropriate approach, is to structure our statute, which is what we're talking about here, to focus on the environmental resources that we've identified as being important. And then outside of the statute, figure out how do we take advantage of the technology that we have today to achieve that desired environmental end, as opposed to the reverse, which is build a system around the GIS model and then try to shoehorn the environmental part in there. I think that the goal here is a good one, as I said at the outset. I just don't think that sort of institutionalizing imperfect NWI maps is the way to go. I think the way to go is recognize wetlands are wetlands, and then figure out how do we use the tools we have to identify those wetlands. And if there's a certain level of imprecision in that, how do we address that, right? Do we expect towns to go and map these wetlands in the field, all of them? Do we tolerate using an NWI map, but then shift that burden effectively to the property owner? to say, hey, this isn't wet over here, folks, even though your NWI maps say it does. That's sort of that's the discussion that I think can happen. But I don't think all of it has to be spelled out in statute. And I certainly wouldn't advocate spelling it out in statute in a way that makes it easy for mapping, but sort of ignores where the wetlands are.
Could I just re-ask that? I'm just talking about definitions so that the municipalities and DEP can talk to each other regardless. I mean, obviously you want the definitions as they stand, but is there a problem between municipalities which are not trained scientists and the DEP? And so can you work the language so that the towns can understand also your definitions? It's a fair question. I don't know what definitions we're talking about now, so it's kind of I'll be in a better position to answer that once I have hear from probably some of the other folks. Okay, I don't know what definitions they're talking about either. That's two of us.
Sorry, sometimes my space bar works to unmute and sometimes it doesn't. Senator Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Livesey, I'm sympathetic with your testimony and the conundrum this presents. It seems to me that we should be pretty assertive in all of our agencies about using GIS in a way that makes sense. And I agree that it should, like any other tool, be in service for public policy rather than the reverse. The question I have is, we have a main GIS office in Department of Administrative and Financial Services. To what extent does the Department of Environmental Protection in your office work with them to use them and to develop the tools that would help efficiently pursue public policy ends that are under your jurisdiction?
I don't know that we have a lot of interaction with them on the shoreline zoning front or within our bureau more broadly. I certainly worked with some of those folks more directly, actually, in my prior capacity at the Land Use Planning Commission, where we're dealing with sort of landscape scale planning and policy type issues. And in my we're actually working with anyone who could help us on certain GIS issues and on other policy pieces. So we don't have great, one of the challenges is that from meetings I've been in with those folks is it helps to have somebody on your team who talks their language, right? And I don't even have anyone on my team who talks their language. So I'm operating at a fairly high level with my understanding of GIS, and people can go and work on things and generate maps, and I can look at them and react and give them feedback, but I'm no GIS expert myself. And so, certainly in our bureau, we're not working all that much with those folks. I know that there are others in the department who have GIS capabilities, and that's sort of their job. I'm sure they work quite a bit with them, but we aren't.
Yeah, seems to me that, if they're the provider of the tool, maybe we have it backwards. Maybe rather than just as you were suggesting that the tools should serve the policy rather than the policy the tool, maybe that office should be encouraged to find ways that it can apply the existing tools to offices and departments like yours. It'd be interesting to see, to encourage them to do that, because I do think there's a great tool there. And you're right. I mean, they know what it can do better than you do. So
they do. And one of the challenges, this is a little bit off the topic, but kind of related. One of the challenges I've experienced before is that a lot of this GIS, I spent a bit of time thinking about LiDAR data and how that could be collected and the value that could bring to different planning exercises. And one of the challenges that the folks over there had was, how do we fund all of this? And the unfortunate thing is there are so many different parts of state government, and I think we're hearing now local government as well, that would benefit from the compilation of this information and the ability for few people to really be able to, help harness it. And there ought to be a way to make that work, because so many different departments. I mean, I was at the Land Use Planning Commission. We had these little piddly budgets, and if I could save, $10,000 and contribute it to some bigger project, I gladly would. But it was really never, we never could do that, because the 2-year budget cycle ends, and then the next thing you know, if I don't spend it, you folks come up with something better to do with it. So I don't know what the solution is there, but I do think there's a role for improved use of GIS technology in coordination across departments. We'd all benefit from it.
Thank you.
Are there any additional questions for Mr. Livesay? I'm not seeing any. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
You're welcome, and I'm happy to answer questions later on in work session about definitions and other things once I know better what questions being asked.
Wonderful, thank you. Now, for folks in the attendee space that are here to speak in favor of the bill, if you could raise your little yellow mechanical hands, that would be appreciated. Anyone here to speak in favor of LD 390, raise your hand. Rebecca Graham. Ms. Graham, we're going to move you over into the space to offer testimony.
Hello. Oh, I guess my name still reads Rebecca Graham. I am her colleague at Maine Municipal Association.
All right.
And my name is Neil Goldberg, so I'm just changing that.
Welcome, Neil. Thank you for joining us.
Happy to be here. Senator Brenner, Representative Tucker, and members of the Environmental and Natural Resource Committee. My name is Neil Goldberg. I'm providing testimony in support of LD 390 on behalf of MMA's Legislative Policy Committee. In conversations with the Department of Environmental Protection and insight from those close to the sponsor of this bill, municipal officials believe this bill would benefit the planning and permitting process as it pertains to waters and wetlands across the state. The bill implements easily understandable and more universal definitions that municipalities can use while carrying out the multi-tiered effort of protecting shoreland zones as described by the department a moment ago. As we've indicated in previous testimony, this bill is truly a response to a trend that is continually shifting important environmental protection activity to the municipal level, mostly because of a lack of capacity within the department. So we would support it again to ease that effort that is being placed on municipalities. Since they're already saddled with this responsibility, this legislation would at least provide clearer definitions to assist the municipal officials carrying out these tasks. These officials are often volunteer, giving their personal time to carry out pretty important protection activities during the planning process. And so anything we can do to support them and their limited capacity would be great. Municipal officials are aware that the definitions are problematic for some of the divisions of the state charged with wildlife and water resource protections. And so while we appreciate the concerns of the many departments that those rules intersect, we think the bill is a very valid vehicle for the committee to at least explore how that intersection can be improved between the departments and the divisions of the state government in service of their municipal partners who deliver these very valuable protection activities. To that end, municipal officials support the goals of this legislation and ask that you use it to increase the support for the department to address the issues highlighted by the sponsor and to improve the environmental protection efforts of municipalities. Thank you for your time, and I'd be happy to address any questions the committee may have either now or after the hearing.
Thank you so much, Mr. Goldberg. Are there any questions for Mr. Goldberg? Not seeing any. All righty. Thank you so much. Are there any additional folks in the attendee space that are here to speak in favor of the legislation? Going once. Going twice. I'm not seeing any, and so we will move to those that are here to speak against the legislation. If you could raise your hands, we'll queue you up. Okay. I think it will be in this order. Mr. Boyle, Mr. Bennett, Mr. Kennedy, Ms. Fraser, Mr. Woolston. So we'll bring Mr. Boyle in first.
Hello,
Hi, Jim. It's great to see you.
Senator
Welcome.
Brenner, Representative Tucker, and members of the committee. Good to see you all too. And special hello to Dan and Deirdre from former Senator Boyle. Good to be here. Former chair of this committee back in 2013-14. Just quickly, I'm also a wetland scientist. I have been since 1990. I've been working in the Maine woods since '86. Ran an environmental wetlands consulting company for 22 years here in Maine. And I oppose more in the sense similar to Director Livesey that while there may be some need for some improvement in how shoreline zoning maps are done in relation to forested wetlands that are regulated by shoreline zoning, NWI maps, in my professional opinion, are not the way to do it. The word national is in there for a reason. Those were done originally and are still done principally for use in evaluating flora and fauna of the wetlands of the United States. And the mapping that's done is appropriate for that. It's not really appropriate at the level of resource delineation that is being contemplated by those who are concerned about the way shoreline zoning wetland mapping is done now. One other thing I like to point out that I don't think has been raised yet is that there is wetland regulation under NERPA, which you're all familiar with. This wetland regulation that's done under the municipal shoreline model ordinance and that flows down through to municipalities, those are not the same wetlands. Wetlands are regulated under shoreline zoning, those that are greater than 10 acres in size and are non-forested. So that it's a very small subset of wetlands across the state that we're talking about. It's not every wetland. So while it's still difficult to do that mapping for a municipality, there are probably better ways for the Office of GIS and others to assist with that, and the Maine Association of Planners, the Maine Association of Wetland Scientists, who I believe has someone waiting to testify. Those groups would be, I think, I would see as productive and useful in looking at this legislation and improving it. But to close, I'm confident that NWI maps are not the way to do this. And by the same token, or while I still have it, they also, the paragraph just above it, uses the actual soil and inundation language that's in the definition of freshwater wetland under the Clean Water Act nationwide. So to remove that, you're actually removing language that's used all across the nation. So I would take a close look at that and not support it, at least at the outset. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Boyle. It's good to see you. Are there any questions? Representative Tucker. You're on mute, Representative Tucker.
Hello, Senator Boyle. Precisely where in the bill is the definition that you were just talking about?
The one that's removed?
Yeah, the one that you think should stay in.
It's, I'm going to pull up my other screen here. Section 2, 38 MRSA, subsection 436A. Well, in the bill, it's on line 12, the paragraph 5, freshwater wetland begins. And then in subparagraph B, paragraph A is 10 or more contiguous acres, et cetera.
Yeah.
Paragraph B is a strike through, that inundated or saturated. That's language specifically that's out of both Maine NERPA as well as Federal Clean Water Act.
I see.
Did you find it?
Yep. So that's standard language from somewhere else. Thank you.
Correct.
Representative Ziegler.
Thank you, and thank you, Senator Boyle. I hate to open Pandora's box here, but do you think that we need a bill to help with this, or do you think that this bill is totally not needed at all, or just needs to be reworked? Since you've been in this sausage making machine yourself?
I have, and so I guess I would be cautious for me, speaking as a private citizen, having just found out about this bill and looking only at the language without hearing from Representative Perry. After hearing what she said when she opened, and then the comments from Director Livesay, and the comments from you folks and the questions about GIS and what, the improvements that have been done in the last decades with that. There's probably a way to make shoreline mapping easier and more predictable for both landowners, homeowners, as well as municipal officials. But I wanted to chime in just mainly to say NWI maps is not the way to do it. So I don't know enough about, what she heard from her constituents there at the down east, Washington, Hancock County, and I forget the title of the group, but there's probably something that can be done and needs to be done, but I just felt like this isn't the way, the NWI in particular. So I'm sorry, I don't know if that helps.
Thank you.
Senator Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Boyle, thanks for coming back and testifying on this. Good to see you. Do you have any reflections upon my question relating to the use of GIS, the state GIS services with respect to these functions based on your experience, how we can do that better?
You can, yeah, I don't have detailed thoughts. Mainly, I would echo, I think, what Dr. Livesay said in terms of there's capacity at GIS. There's capacity with local code enforcement officers and the planning boards where a lot of this mapping responsibility falls. The question becomes, how do you integrate the two of those in a way that's cost effective and efficient? Right now, there isn't a good methodology for that. So I don't think we can come up with that on this call. I think the main answer I would give is GIS is much improved from where it was 2 decades ago or even 5 years ago, but it's not at the level where you can rely on it to then draw lines on a map and then have those lines tell a property owner exactly where the shoreline zone is, and in particular where the resource protection zone might be within the shoreline zone. When you get to that granular level down at the town level, the landowner applying for a permit is, ultimately right now, the way it works is they're responsible. However they get that information, they're responsible for verifying its accuracy, as is the code enforcement officer. So I would say, to the extent that GIS, the Office of GIS could work with maybe the Maine Association of Planners and somebody at DEP, and even the code enforcement officers have their own association, folks like that. I think it's probably more of an effort than just a few words changing in this bill, but I think it could be done, and GIS could be a help.
Thank you, Senator.
Yep.
Are there any additional questions for Senator Boyle? I'm not seeing any. I just want to thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's good to see you.
You too. I sympathize with your technology glitches, so more power to you. Thanks all.
All right, next up will be Nick Bennett. Welcome, Nick.
Thank you, Senator Brenner. Good morning. Senator Brenner, Representative Tucker, and members of the ENR committee. It's nice to see you all. I think it's been over a year since I've actually testified in front of you, and it's very good to see you all here today. I'm the staff scientist for the Natural Resources Council of Maine, and we are the largest environmental advocacy group in Maine with more than 25,000 members and supporters. And I'm testifying here today in opposition to LD 390. Many of the reasons that we oppose this bill have been stated already by Mr. Boyle and Mr. Livesay, but I'll just take and I won't read my testimony that I submitted via the portal, but I'll take a couple of minutes to explain what's troubling for us for this bill. Shoreland zoning is a municipal undertaking in Maine, and that's the way the legislature set this up. It's important to remember that our shoreland zoning law and its delegation to municipalities is a nation-leading set of laws and rules. It works spectacularly well. In my written testimony, I put in a link to a study that was done by the Department of Conservation in Vermont and Maine DEP, comparing the results of those two states' legal and regulatory frameworks for protecting water quality. And shoreland zoning in Maine was a hands down winner. Vermont has water bodies that should be quite similar in value to those in Maine and also in characteristics. But ours are a lot better and much better protected from development. So this is a really successful statute and regime. Lakes in Maine are incredibly valuable, as are streams, and we should stick with the system that is working well. I also want to add that although it's been a while and my hair was a lot less gray when I used to do wetlands delineations, I do remember how they were done. And we would look at NWI maps, National Wetlands Inventory maps, and then go out in the field and dig in the ground and find where wetlands were or look for the water. And they often didn't line up very well. So putting any kind of statutory definition in based on the presence or absence of a wetland on the NWI map is a big mistake. They're just not meant for looking at the presence or absence of wetlands or wetlands boundaries on a meaningful level for regulatory or zoning decisions, as Mr. Boyle also pointed out. We have similar concerns about the stream definition section, and it really is appropriate for detailed maps for things like shoreline zoning to involve a field verification step. So while it's fine to use the USGS topos and NWI maps to get a sense of where these resources are, and then go out and check, there's no substitute for going out and checking at this point. We just don't have data that are online and in GIS layers that are reliable enough to do that. And I should point out that, you know, this statute doesn't reference state resources, it references federal resources. And there's a reason for that, which is that, you know, that's what's there. The NWI maps and the USGS topo maps are there. You know, state resources aren't. And USGS is way behind in updating some of its topo maps. Some of them are ancient, some of them aren't. And so there's a great deal of variability in how reliable they are. And we don't have LiDAR data for much of the state, or even updated aerial photography data for much of the state. So again, these resources are not particularly accurate, and there's no substitute for field verification. NRCM recognizes that shoreline zoning is complicated and that different municipalities have different resources, and that goes for all aspects of shoreline zoning, not just mapping. It's true for enforcement too. And we have consistently advocated for more state resources to municipalities to help them handle the responsibilities of shoreline zoning better. But I just want to emphasize that our framework works, and it works well in general when compared to the legal and regulatory frameworks in other states. And we should be really deliberate and careful about making changes to it. So with that, I'll just urge that the committee vote ought not to pass on LD 390, and I would be happy to take any questions now or later on if committee members have them.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bennett. Representative Bloom has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Really good to see you, and thank you for your really good testimony. Very compelling. so I guess what I'm hearing you saying is that the localization of and the responsibility of shoreline zoning in local communities is extremely important because of the need to know on the ground what's really happening.
Yes, I think that's right.
Do you have a follow-up, Representative Bloom?
No, that was really easy. Thanks.
Any other questions for Mr. Bennett? All right, not seeing any.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for joining us. We'll move on to Mr. Kennedy. Welcome. Good morning.
Hello. All right. Well, thank you very much, Chair Senator Brenner and Chair Representative Tucker and members of the Committee on Environment and Natural Resources. My name is Matt Kennedy, and I'm representing the Maine Association of Wetland Scientists, also known as MAWS. We're focused on wetland science, regulation, and education here in Maine. MAWS consists of approximately 150 members, including consultants, regulators, educators, and biologists, all working within the state. We're professional wetland scientists who have delineated thousands of miles of wetland boundaries across Maine. And we offer the following testimony here today in opposition of LD 390. So MAWS is concerned with the proposed changes to the definitions of freshwater wetland, forested wetland, outlet stream, and stream that are proposed in this bill. The proposed changes to these definitions shift the criteria for the identification of these resources away from the physical and the biological characteristics observed on the ground, as Mr. Bennett had described, and then shifting them towards the GIS-based mapping products, such as U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service National Wetlands Inventory, also known as NWI, and the U.S. Geologic Survey's National Hydrography Dataset, NHD. So we know through our extensive experience, wetlands-related experience, that NWI and NHD are just simply not detailed enough to accurately map the location and extent of these important resources. So we as MAWS do not support these proposed changes. So as I said, we're intimately familiar with these GIS products, NWI and NHD, and we recognize that they provide value as high-level planning and kind of site screening tools. But these resources should not and cannot replace on-the-ground wetland and stream identification. NWI mapping is primarily based on aerial imagery, and there are inherent inaccuracies when interpreting these wetland boundaries from aerial photographs. Specifically, errors of omission and inaccuracy of boundary delineation. So these aerial photographs lots of times differ whether there's leaf on conditions, in the summer, spring, versus leaf off conditions. So that can lead to a substantial, when it's leaf on, it can lead to a substantial underrepresentation of forested wetlands, which are often obscured by tree cover in aerial imagery. Also in late summer or fall, there may not be standing water that would be visible during photos from the springtime. So wetland boundaries, they flux over the course of the year, and due to influences from surrounding land use, wildlife, climate. So these NWI maps they're only updated periodically, and the maps are unlikely to represent these true conditions on the ground. So these limitations can lead to substantial underrepresentation of wetlands that are actually present there. Additionally, we do not believe that streams need to be mapped by NHD in order to be protected under shoreland zoning. Similar to NWI, the NHD is a great high-level planning tool, but it is replete with errors of omission and location. Streams are highly valuable resources and contain very sensitive and ecologically important habitat, and are often identified through on-site investigations. So relying on these mapping tools for stream identification will likely result in fewer streams being included in shoreland zoning, which means a reduction in the protection for streams. So it's our opinion that the proposed changes are not in keeping with the intention of the mandatory Shoreland Zoning Act, which declares that the purpose of zoning and land use controls in the shoreland zone is to, among other things, prevent and control water pollution, protect wildlife habitat, protect buildings and lands from flooding, and to protect coastal and freshwater wetlands. By limiting the resources by which the law applies to only those mapped by NWI and NHD, this bill would substantially reduce the amount of wetlands and streams that are protected, which would then reduce the effectiveness of the law and run counter to its purpose. While we do recognize the burden, as Representative Perry had mentioned, on field mapping these wetlands can have on municipalities, we understand that the field verification of wetlands and streams can be very costly and time consuming. However, we also do recognize that the vital role that wetlands play in our ecosystems and communities here in Maine, from flood abatement to pollution control to wildlife habitat, shoreline stabilization, wetlands are critical to maintaining a healthy ecosystem. And it is our extensive experience with the members of MAWS that makes us very confident that the sole reliance on these GIS mapping tools, then NWI and NHD, will underrepresent wetlands and streams on the landscape and will lead to more impacts to these valuable resources. This bill has been proposed to address concerns with the time, money, and resources necessary to accurately map wetlands and streams in municipalities. MAWS would fully support increased training and assistance opportunities for municipalities, and we have offered our services in this regard in the past. So MAWS has assisted with revisions to the mandatory Shoreland Zoning Act to help municipalities include more flexible language in their ordinances. Also, MAWS has put on workshops and trainings regarding wetlands. I'm the program chair for MAWS, and I'm happy to speak with any of these folks from municipalities who would like some, municipal specific training or workshops that we could host to provide them with a clearer understanding of these, wetland related issues such as identification, regulation, and conservation. So thank you for your consideration of these comments, and be happy to answer any questions that you guys have.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kennedy. Representative Tucker.
Thank you very much for your testimony on behalf of the planners. My question has to do with the practice of wetland zoning that's taking place here in Maine. Is it permitted? Do your members use GIS resources?
Yes, we use these GIS resources, NWI, oftentimes prior to going out into the field. So we know what to expect, or to, assist clients who just want to kind of have a higher level understanding of what types of resources have been mapped in their areas.
So you agree then that the resources delineated in this LD are certainly things that you can do now if you want to. In other words, you can use GIS and U.S. Geological Survey maps and so forth, right?
Oh yes, so I guess it would be, they're kind of like looking at the state of Maine. Like if you were to look at the full size of the state, and you could point out where Moosehead Lake is, right? That's
so your problem is
they're a high level. Like you can see where a big wetland is, but when you get down to the municipal granular level, as Mr. Boyle had kind of been talking about, they don't really provide the site-specific needs that you would need to look at: hydrology, soils, changes in the landscape. In order to get a really accurate understanding of what the resources are on.
So you can use these federal resources. You're not prohibited from using them. You just don't want to see them linked in statute.
Correct. Yes, they do provide very useful information. and we do use them quite often to do desktop analyses. I mean, it's much less expensive for us as wetland scientists to go log onto our computer and pull up the NWI website to get an understanding of the site versus driving, you know, a few hours away and getting on site to look at what's there on the ground. But
Okay.
again, they're a high level tool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional questions for Mr. Kennedy? Mr. Hanley, Representative Hanley.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Kennedy, yes, thank you for your testimony. I just went on the NWI website and actually went to the map where my home is. And I don't find anything inconsistent in what I'm seeing. And I'm no expert in this, so I'm a real novice looking at these maps. So I guess I don't understand why you wouldn't want another whole set of data linked to this data we have. Is that the issue here?
Well, I can tell you who's someone who looks at these NWI maps on a daily basis, that they do not provide the level of accuracy that this bill is giving them in terms of resource identification. So oftentimes, clients who are looking to develop a property will go to these sites, NWI, NHD, and say, oh, looks like we can, develop over here or whatnot. There's no mapped wetlands. And we'll say, yeah, I mean, that looks like there's potential for that area based on these maps. However, we still need to get on the ground to make sure that there's nothing actually there. So, and oftentimes we find small streams that aren't picked up. We find wetlands that are there that are obscured by tree cover. So, yeah, I mean, I can tell you from my personal professional experience that they are not accurate, and it would be remiss to use them as such a function.
Yes, Representative Hanley, go ahead.
Yes, do you use the main GIS system when you do your research?
Yes, we do, yeah.
A follow-up, if I may. Do you have any conflicts with that? Do you have any problems with that site?
We don't necessarily use the site itself, but we will pull data off of it, use topo data, LiDAR data, parcel data, things like that, and it's very useful to our as wetland scientists for our profession.
Any additional questions for Mr. Kennedy? Not seeing any. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Mr. Kennedy. And Ms. Frazier, I believe you're next, and you are in the room with us.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me, Senator Brenner, Representative Tucker, members of the Environment and Natural Resources Committee. My name is Elizabeth Frazier. I'm an attorney at Pierce Atwood, and I'm speaking before you this morning on behalf of the Maine Real Estate and Development Association. For those of you who aren't familiar, MREDA, that's the name of it, is a statewide membership-based organization. Members include for-profit and nonprofit developers, bankers, property managers, and other related professionals. Particularly relevant to this conversation are our architects, our engineers, and our planners. And through the work of MREDA's Public Policy Committee, MREDA pursues a more fair, practical, and predictable policy environment. We are in opposition to the proposed legislation, and I believe you have all heard many reasons why this morning. I will not repeat them. I think Mr. Livesey did a nice job outlining our concerns, and I think Mr. Kennedy followed up with a lot of the same concerns. Primarily, we are concerned that the mapping would be insufficient, and a lot of the other points that were raised this morning. I do want to say, you know, we have, Marita in the past has always supported additional funding for GIS. It's come up in bonding proposals over the last couple of years before the AFA committee. Unfortunately, it's never cleared the hurdle. So that's something we do continue to support. We would certainly urge this committee to, you know, speak to your colleagues about supporting that kind of effort to provide the resources to the state that it needs to provide the resources to the municipalities. And in closing, I'll just say, you know, I think I tried to sort of understand really what the disconnect between everyone here was this morning. And it sounds like there is room for conversation between municipalities, perhaps the department, and some of the folks that do this work to maybe get everyone on the same page about language and to just understand each other and open a line of conversation about how mapping works and what municipalities really need to make it effective and efficient for themselves and for developers. So we'd love to be a part of that conversation, of course, provide any expertise that we can. And in the meantime, I will certainly try and answer any questions. I am not as versed in this as Mr. Kennedy, so please don't ask me any of the technical questions that you asked him, but otherwise happy to talk about our position. Thank you very much.
Are there any questions for Ms. Fraser?
Great, thank you. I did submit written testimony as well, so you'll see that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And next up we have Jared Woolston. Welcome, Jared.
Hey, everybody. Morning, Senator Brenner, Representative Ralph Tucker. I just wanted to open by saying I appreciate the points by Representative Perry and Nick Levesey and some of the other points that were made by others. I'm representing the Maine Association of Planners today. And I provided a couple pages of testimony. And rather than reading that verbatim, I'll just open by saying Maine Association of Planners is testifying not to support this LD. We're testifying against it. And I'll give you a little background about myself. I'm a town planner now, but I used to work for the DEP in the Land Resource Regulation Division. I think it's now a bureau, but a lot of my time was spent working with people out in the field, determining where protected natural resources were in the field, and giving some guidance for land use regulations like the Natural Resources Protection Act and shoreland zoning. And in my municipal capacity, you know, I deal a lot with shoreland zoning now, a lot more than I used to. And shoreland zoning relies both on the text in the zoning ordinance as well as the maps, the official shoreland zoning maps. And having traveled, you know, through central and southern Maine, visiting with code officers, you see a lot of different shoreland zoning maps. Some are hand drawn, you know, with colors. Others have digital maps that are open to the public. So everybody's doing their own thing when it comes to shoreland zoning maps. So what we see in the bill or the LD here is something that looks like it's addressing a problem with the zoning maps, consistency, and enabling local staff to work with the public in sort of a consistent way. We're not sure, Maine Association of Planners is not sure why the exemption for 2,500 square foot RP slivers and lots is in the bill. We're not sure if that's underpinned by something in shoreland zoning or just you know, some nuance across the state of Maine. We're not sure about that one. And as stated by others, the NWI maps and the National Hydrography maps, they're pretty good for planning purposes, but for regulation, they present a lot of challenges, and I'm not going to restate what's already been said. The testimony that I provided, we offered a couple of suggestions to enable field determinations rather than revisiting maps when what happens in the field is not exactly what's on the map. We offered basically to allow a field determination within a short range, maybe within 100 feet of a map shoreland zone, without going through the long public process of changing an official shoreline zoning map. And I think this would get at what others have said, that while mapping even shoreline zoning maps that are done now, not with this proposed legislation, can be pretty good from a desktop perspective, at a computer level, or just looking at a map and sort of drawing things. What's on the map is not always what's in the field. So we would suggest that the enabling laws for local shoreline zoning should also consider some of the flexibility, I think, that was alluded to by the representative from Moz for local field determinations, or working with professional technical people that can determine where the text of the zoning ordinance is reflected in the field. So that's basically a long way of saying we don't support the bill, but we do think that there are some problems here that ought to be looked at. So unless there are specific questions about my testimony, I'll leave it at that.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wilson. Does anyone have a question for Mr. Wilson? I'm not seeing any. I appreciate you joining us this morning. Thank you so much. Are there any folks in the attendee space who are here to testify against the bill? I don't see any hands currently raised. Oh, you've joined us. Welcome, Mr. Adams.
Yes, sorry about that. I don't know what just happened, but I got kicked off my computer.
I think you were in that intermediate space and your hand went down in the attendee space because you weren't a panelist yet, but welcome, you've joined us.
All right, thank you. Hi, good morning. I just am looking at this LD now. My name is Nick Adams. I am the code enforcement officer for the town of Freeport. I'm also a land use consultant for quite a bit of areas around Sebago Lake region area. I haven't had a lot of time to review this, but I just listening to some of the testimony I just heard today, I would definitely would not advise to go forward with this bill. There's a lot of discrepancies in it. I met with Representative or House Speaker Gideon's office probably 2 or 3 times in the past couple of years over the issues between shoreland zoning and NERPA and how the regulations don't overlap, and there's a lot of confusion between the department's rules, and it causes a lot of confusion for landowners within municipalities. And the big issue that I see with this bill is that there's still going to be more inconsistencies between the 2 bills, even with the definitions in 480 for the National Resource Protection Act. They're not going to match even again. But also the inconsistencies with the actual GIS data. So on the enforcement side of how my position at the regulator in the town, the planners develop the language, the council, the selectmen adopt it, and it's up to the code enforcement officers to actually enforce it. So the zoning map itself is a map that cannot be changed. If you take data and you put it on there that's inaccurate, the administrative people in the office do not have the authority to change that. That has to go back to the whole legislative body to change it. So whether that's a council, a board, a town meeting, or so on. And there is so many inconsistencies that we have on our zoning maps now by tax data that's not accurate and other things that actually put landowners into resource protected areas that aren't supposed to be there. And the data from the wetland inventory it's just about as accurate as the flood maps that we've been trying to adopt since 2003, and we're still in the appeal period because of basically those were adopted from LiDAR, going from 10-foot LiDAR data to 2-foot LiDAR and stuff like that. But I didn't have a lot to speak on it. I just wanted to let you know if you had any questions on how it actually be enforced at the local level. I can answer those questions, or if anybody has any questions for a work session on how it actually would be enforced and not just written into the law. But thank you.
Great. Thank you for making time to join us this morning, Mr. Adams. Are there any questions for Mr. Adams? I'm not seeing any. So now you're going to go back through the portal into it's going to feel like you get kicked off, but then you'll show back up over there.
Thanks.
Yeah. Are there any other folks in the attendee space here to speak in opposition to the legislation? I'm not seeing any hands. Are there any folks in the attendee space here to speak neither for nor against the bill, this would be the time to raise your hand. I'm seeing one. Are there any others? All right, Ms. Norton, we'll move you over and you'll be our next presenter. Welcome, Ms. Norton.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'm Shelley Norton. I work as a planner for the Androscoggin Valley Council of Governments, where one of my tasks is to create shoreline zoning maps for towns. Creating shoreline zoning maps is often frustrating and always time consuming, and it's exacerbated by a couple of main issues. One is that we rely on GIS data sets developed by federal agencies, as you've been hearing this morning, for water features, floodplains, and wetlands in order to determine where the shoreland zone is and the resource protection zones. Those federal agencies preparing the data often use different criteria for the decision on how they map things that doesn't match up well with state law. And certainly, as you've also heard this morning, the scale isn't really appropriate for the level of how we're regulating shoreline zoning in the state. Second, when we do have issues that arise with federal data and how to apply it, it's challenging for DEP's shoreline zoning team to work through the questions because they don't have anyone who has access to GIS or proficiency in it on staff. They're responsive, but without being able to literally see the issue mappers are running into when we have questions. It requires a lot of back and forth screen sharing of past and current data to explain what's changed at the national level and the issues we're finding with it. There also isn't a go-to person for mapping questions at DEP or a reference to see what guidance they've provided in the past to other people doing mapping. So this creates a lot of inefficiencies and slows our process down. Currently, shoreline zoning maps are created very differently and by different entities across the state. Some are done by regional councils like AVCOG, some by private consultants, some by partnerships with GIS departments at the University of Maine System schools. Some of us make our decisions as to what goes on the shoreline zone through a more manual process, while in Washington County, a series of automated models was created to develop their maps. This legislation was created to solve problems identified when using the modeling and with a modeling system. The model has created an economy of scale, which has not only saved towns money, but has meant that they have recently updated maps at an affordable level there. In many parts of the state, we are not using models yet, but modeling is a far more efficient method. There are even many towns across the state with hand-drawn maps from the 1990s, whose shoreland zone is likely very inaccurate by today's data and standards that's available. The cost of updating a map is often more than a rural community can budget. I'm here supporting revising the shoreland zoning law to simplify the mapping process, but suggesting that a work group is needed to consider the range of mapping challenges that are present for the full range of mapping techniques currently in use, as well as for DEP staff. We need to find a more streamlined process for making maps while maintaining the same level of resource protection. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Norton. I would maybe like to nominate you to run that committee. Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Norton? I appreciate your testimony. I think it was a nice closure for all that we've talked about this morning, and perhaps seems like one of the bubbling up solutions that's emerging to the challenge. So thank you so much. Are there any other folks in the attendee space that are here to testify neither for nor against, or have any testimony for the bill today? Not seeing any, I will close the public hearing for LD 390. Thank you so much, everyone. I propose that we take a 5-minute break and then come back and we will start our work session on LD 39. Sound good? All right. We'll see you all in 5 minutes. Okay, if you are here and not on the screen, if you would join us again, that would be great. I believe we are ready to open a work session on LD 39, an act to remove the plastic bag ban. Does anyone want to start our discussion? Dan, did you want to present?
If you think it would be helpful, I can go through my analysis. In general, past ENR committees have there have been instances where going through the analysis in full is helpful. There have been other instances where everyone sort of has an idea what they want to do, and I don't really want to belabor things. So I'll generally speaking look to you as to whether or not you think it would be helpful.
Is there anyone that feels like this would be helpful? Representative Tucker.
I would just like to ask for clarification that whether we're in work session on Title 39 only at this time. And I would like to hear a brief summary from Dan. Thank you.
Okay. I believe we are in work session just for LD 39. We will consider that bill and vote on it. And then I think that will inform our plan for the other two bills going forward. So Dan, I will pass it over to you.
Sure. So you should all have received an email from me very recently that includes a bill analysis. It's for all three bills. These bills are, other than the title and the sponsor or co-sponsors, they're identical. As some of you know, this was the first year we have been operating without a duplicate policy for legislation. So in the past, bills that were deemed identical by the revisor's office were considered duplicates, and the first filed bill that was given to that sponsor and the others whose bill was determined to be a duplicate were added as what were called mandatory co-sponsors. So that's gone now. And what we're left with, and what we'll see probably more frequently going forward, is bills that are remarkably identical. It is what it is. So these three bills all propose to repeal the law restricting the use of single-use carry-out plastic bags by retail stores. For lack of a better way to refer to the law, and since everyone has sort of used the same phrase, we'll call it the plastic bag ban. In place of the plastic bag ban, these three bills would reenact the law that was in place prior to the enactment of that ban. And that allows a retailer to use plastic bags if the retailer maintains a receptacle for collecting used plastic bags and ensures that such collected plastic bags are recycled. I've noted here that a slightly modified version of the same plastic bag collection requirement also exists in the current law. The current plastic bag law is at 38 MRSA section 1611. And if you keep scrolling in the bill analysis, I have it appended to the end. The plastic bag ban was enacted in 2019 by the 129th legislature. Under the law, there's a plastic bag prohibition, a requirement to charge a 5-cent fee per recycled paper bag. And there's a provision regarding the state's preemption and voiding of local plastic and paper bag regulations. Each of those items was set to take effect under the law on April 22nd, 2020. But as we all know, things changed last March. The 129th legislature adjourned in March 2020 due to the onset of the coronavirus. But before doing so, it enacted I guess what we were calling at the time, a COVID omnibus bill, LD 2167. That bill, amongst many other things, delayed the paper bag fee requirement under the plastic bag law, as well as part of the local ordinance preemption requirement until January 1st, 2021. Oddly, the bill didn't delay the implementation date for the plastic bag ban itself, so it was a little disjointed, and the law retains to some degree that odd nature of how it was amended through the COVID omnibus. In December 2020, DEP announced that its enforcement of the plastic bag ban and paper bag fee would be further delayed until July 1st, 2021. Under the existing law, municipal regulation of the use of plastic bags and paper bags have been preempted and void since at least January 15th, 2021. The preemption provision is a little vague because that COVID omnibus bill only changed part of the language in the preemption section, and the language in the preemption section was designed to take effect all at once. I wasn't involved with the COVID omnibus bill, I'll just say that. I've listed the entities here that have submitted written testimony or spoke at the hearing on one or more of the bills. To my knowledge, there was no one who took different positions on any of the bills. So there was no one who was in favor of one and against another. So I've noted here there was one piece of neither for nor against testimony from the American Forest and Paper Association, suggesting that for a number of reasons, the committee should reconsider the current law's requirement that a 5-cent fee be paid for each recycled paper bag provided by a retailer. I've also noted here there was a request from Representative Gramlich, I believe in response to testimony from Representative Falkingham about the impact of the plastic bag ban on lower income individuals. I believe Representative Gramlich may have been recalling the original version of LD 1532, which was the plastic bag ban bill. It contained an exemption, which I've copied there, from the 5-cent paper bag fee for customers who use an EBT transfer card or other payment card or voucher under the federal SNAP program, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or the WIC program, Women, Infants, and Children's Program. The majority report amendment to LD 1532 made a number of changes to the bill. One of those changes was removing that exemption language. So that exemption language is not in the current law. I went back through my notes and I couldn't find any notes on committee discussion of that change. So I did go back and talk with the 3 primary entities that were involved in the development of 1532. That was the Maine Grocers and Food Producers Association, the Natural Resources Council of Maine, and the Retail Association of Maine. And their recollection was that there was some concern over whether that exemption could conflict with federal SNAP program requirements, which are fairly restrictive. And that may have contributed to the decision to remove the exemption. I unfortunately am not exactly 100% clear as to what the motivation was in the majority report behind removing the exemption. That's the best I could do. I've also provided a copy of which you saw already, I believe, an amendment proposed by Representative Johansson, and he might want to speak to that as well. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about the analysis or the bill, or I suppose the amendment as well.
Are there any questions for Dan? I'm not seeing any. Representative Johansson, did you want to speak to your amendment?
Thank you, Senator. I expect that I want to add this as a minority report after the vote.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Representative Tucker.
May I make a procedural suggestion?
Of course.
Would Representative Johansson like to make an ought to pass motion as amended by his amendment? That way he can explain his amendment as part of a motion, so that we will have a motion on the floor while we discuss it, so we don't go in circles without a motion on the floor. That's just a suggestion, Chris. I thought you might like to do it that way procedurally.
It makes sense, and I would like to do that.
Great.
So I will make a motion that we address that amendment at this time.
I'll second that amendment.
Okay,
I'll second the motion.
so is your motion ought to pass as amended, and you're going to tell us what the amendment is?
Yes, Senator, thank you.
Yep, okay. Do you want to describe the amendment?
Yes, this amendment, we're not having a problem with the plastic bags as it's described by those folks that were testifying in other areas of the state. You can drive all day here and not see a plastic bag in the trees alongside the road. And a lot of us have uses for them where we reuse them. So my amendment would allow areas that are not having a problem and want to opt out, that they could opt out of this law. And leave it up to those that are having a problem to continue using the law, and those that want to opt out can opt out. You're muted, Stacy. Senator.
I don't get that a lot.
No.
So your motion is ought to pass as amended, and your amendment is that municipalities have the option to opt out. Is that
Yes.
clear?
Yes, it is.
Dan, did you want to offer a thought?
If I can just clarify, because I drafted the amendment for Representative Johansson at his direction. The way it is designed to work is a municipality could opt out of what is required under the state law, but they would not be able to then go ahead and adopt their own local ordinance regulating plastic bags. So they couldn't decide to adopt a 5-cent fee for plastic bags. They would just be opted out under the state law.
Is there discussion? Representative Hanley.
Yes, thank you, Senator. I'd like to speak in favor of Representative Johansson's amendment. You know, we had testimony where it was, and this is just hype language, because the United States, it's been illegal to dump in the ocean, I think, since 1982. I remember the big issue around a barge that was in New York City that was trying to find a home, and it brought to light the fact that New York City was dumping millions of tons of garbage every year in the ocean. So we've outlawed that. Maine doesn't dump garbage in the ocean, doesn't dump plastic. And this plastic bag ban takes away from citizens the right to choose. If you want to have a plastic bag, why can't you have that decision at the store? That's up to you. And as Representative Johansson said, you can drive for miles and never see a plastic bag for days. I live on the Kennebec River. I have a dock and a boat there, and my wife and I spend every day we take a trip in that boat. And I can count on one hand the number of times I've picked up plastic bags. I've lived there 26 years. But I can tell you right now that I've picked up enough bottles and cans to fill my boat 3 times over. And they have a 5-cent deposit on it. So the problem isn't plastic bags, it's people. And there isn't any plastic bag problem that requires such a drastic step as completely removing it. And I also want to tell you that personally, whenever we get single-use plastic bags, we save every single one of them, and we reuse every single one of them. Usually as trash can liners of some type to dispose of some type of waste. And now when I run out of my supply of plastic bags that I get at the store, I'm going to go and buy plastic bags. So I'm simply going to replace plastic bags that are given to me when I purchase something. And I'm going to have to go purchase plastic bags to do the same job I do now. So you're not you're not removing a problem. In fact, you might be accelerating a problem. So I ask everyone to join me and vote in favor of this amendment. It adds a little bit of common sense to this legislation. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Representative Hanley. Representative Dudera.
Thank you, Senator Brenner. I will be voting in opposition to this amendment. I served on the Camden Conservation Commission several years ago when we were working to pass a plastic bag ordinance. The other towns in my district also did the same thing, Rockport and Islesboro, as well as many of the numerous towns around our area. I feel that this amendment takes away the right of towns to choose what they would like to do, whether they would like to ban plastic bags. I know that we overwhelmingly, last session, had tremendous support in favor of the plastic bag ban. I have heard from many dozens and dozens of constituents saying, please keep the plastic bag ban. And finally, as somebody who was very active in the Conservation Commission, I myself led a number of cleanups, participated in them, and I can tell you that there are plastic bags littering our landscape. They are getting in our oceans, and that's more valuable to me to have to buy a plastic bag or use something else like my chicken feed bags, which I make into reusable bags. And I'll say that for Representative Hanley, because I know he has chickens as well. That's much more preferable to me than spoiling our beautiful Maine environment. Thank you.
Representative Gramlich.
Thank you, Senator. If I may pose a question for Representative Johansson. I'm curious, Representative Johansson, as you may recall last year when we had the initial bill presented before our committee, there was a great deal of conversation from the Retail Association in terms of having continuity across the state so that consumers would know and retailers would know with some degree of certainty what the expectations were. I'm curious if you had conversations with the Retail Association as you were considering this amendment, and if so, were they weighed in on this?
The Retail Association, their views are driven by where their members come from. And that's in the southern part of the state where you're having a problem with plastic bags. The people in my district, the retailers in my district are very upset by this ban and do not want it at all. And I've heard from them many times, and I'm still hearing from them.
Representative Tucker.
Thank you. I simply have 3 points to make. First of all, in my district, my constituents are overwhelmingly in support of having a statewide plastic bag shopping ban. Secondly, the thing that comes to my mind, the most colorful thing about this, is the testimony by the recycling people and by the waste disposal industry that these plastic bags absolutely gum up completely the recycling process. These bags get caught in the axles of the machinery. They're just a total pain in the whole recycling and rubbish disposal process. Thirdly, this amendment, which would allow a town opt-out, will bring back again a diversity of different rules that retailers will have to follow from town to town. The state preemption of local options was the fundamental basis for the political bargain made when this bill was passed. The store owners, the Retail Association of Maine, and the other retailers in other associations also. The whole reason they finally went along with a ban after having 20 or 30 different towns with different rules, the complete basis of their agreement to this is that it would be universal across the state. And this simply goes backwards and allows some towns to have it and other towns not. And so I think it goes back on the entire bargain on which the current law is based. So I'll be voting against the amended bill, and in essence against the bill itself as well. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? I think we are ready for a vote. Sabrina, do you want to move us through a roll call, please?
Yes, absolutely.
Can we walk through what we're voting on?
The motion on the table is ought to pass as amended. Apologize, by Representative Johansson, seconded by Representative Hanley.
So a vote ought to pass would repeal the bag ban, but allow municipalities an opt-out, just so everyone's clear. Wait, you're shaking your head, Dan.
Yeah, can I clarify that I assume Representative Johansson's proposal ought to pass as amended by his written amendment that was distributed today. That amendment replaces LD 39 with a proposal that would keep the bag ban in place, but would allow municipalities to choose to opt out of the statewide ban.
Thank you for clarification. Is everyone comfortable with what we're voting on? Clear? Okay. Whoops. Representative Bell, you're on mute.
Yep, I'm still a little bit confused. One more time, I just want to make sure that I understand what I'm voting on.
The amendment would replace LD 39. So forget about repealing the bag ban right now. It would amend the bag ban law to either allow a municipality to operate under the framework of that law, which is plastic bags are banned. There's a 5-cent fee on recycled paper bags, or it would allow a municipality to opt out of that statewide ban. And then it would be up to retailers within the municipality to choose what they want to do.
Okay, I believe we're ready, Sabrina. Thank you, Dan, for that clarification.
Okay. Senator Brenner.
No.
Representative Tucker.
No.
Senator Bennett.
No.
Representative Hanley.
Yes.
Senator Carney.
No.
Representative Bell.
No.
Representative Bloom.
No.
Representative Dudera.
No.
Representative Gramlich.
No.
Representative Johansson.
Yes.
Representative O'Connor.
Yes.
Representative Toole. Absent. Representative Ziegler.
No.
So we have 3 noes. And 3 yeses, I apologize, and 9 noes. And 1 absent.
Yes, Representative Tucker. You're on mute, Representative.
I'm just, would like to know whether we should now take another vote or simply indicate that a no vote meant we voted against the entire bill.
I think we should feel okay that a no vote means we voted against the entire bill.
Ought not to pass.
Correct.
Okay.
We voted against the amended bill, correct?
But as amended, right? Are you
Yes.
straight on that, Dan?
Yeah, so I guess to clarify, in my experience, most committees, when a motion is made and fails, will just clarify what the majority wants and the minority wants and flip it if necessary. There are some committees who will stick to true parliamentary procedure and say that motion has failed and require a new motion to be made until a motion has a majority. It sounds like what you would all like to do is just treat that vote as the vote on the bill. And it sounds like, per Representative Tucker, the majority report will be ought not to pass on the bill, and the minority report will be ought to pass as amended by Representative Johansson's amendment. Is everyone okay with that?
That sounds perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And it will allow us to have a rousing debate once it hits the floor.
And then
In the Senate, by the way.
all right, so next up, we have a work session on LD 108. Does anyone have a motion? LD 108 is an act to improve public safety by repealing the single-use plastic carryout bag ban.
I move ought not to pass.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Oh,
May I?
hmm.
Does somebody have the floor?
Goodness. Sorry, I'm back. Sorry, I don't know what happened. You all froze right when everybody froze.
Just to clarify, the purpose of this motion, I take it, is to dispense with the other two identical bills. And
That's correct.
okay,
So we'll deal with them one at a time.
thank you.
Yeah. So we have a motion on the floor and a second, and Sabrina, we're ready for a roll call.
Senator Brenner,
Go on.
I vote no.
Yes.
Whoops, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I vote yes, ought not to pass.
Representative Tucker,
Whoops, you're muted, Representative.
No, ought not to pass.
Wait a minute.
We've got to be clear. Yes vote is ought not to pass, right?
Yes.
correct.
You said no.
Representative Tucker, you voted no to ought not to pass.
I made a mistake. Yes, ought not to pass. I
Okay.
apologize.
That's okay. Not that we want to assume that we know how you want to vote.
Senator Bennett,
Yes.
Representative Hanley,
No.
Senator Carney,
Yes.
Representative Bell,
Yes, not ought to pass.
Representative Bloom,
Yes.
Representative Dudera,
Yes.
Representative Gramlich,
Yes.
Representative Johansson,
No.
Representative O'Connor,
No.
Representative Toole, absent, Representative Ziegler.
Yes.
Eight yes, 9 yes, 9 yes, 3 no, and 1 absent.
All right. And moving on.
I'm sorry. What is the minority report on that?
The minority report is ought to pass.
As amended, or just ought not, or ought to pass?
No amendment, just ought to pass.
Okay. And then moving on to a opening work session for LD 244. An act to repeal Maine's single-use plastic bag law. I'll entertain a motion. Yes, Representative Ziegler.
I move ought not to pass.
I second that.
So we have a motion on the floor and a second. Any discussion? We'll move forward with a vote. Sabrina, once again, looking to you for a roll call.
Senator Brenner,
Yes.
Representative Tucker,
Yes.
Senator Bennett,
Yes.
Representative Hanley,
No.
Senator Carney,
Yes.
Representative Bell,
Yes.
Representative Bloom, must have lost her. Representative Dudera,
Yes.
Representative Gramlich,
She appears to be frozen.
I'll circle back. Representative Johansson,
No.
Representative O'Connor,
No.
Representative Toole, still absent. Representative Ziegler,
Yes.
looks like we lost both Representative Bloom and Representative Gramlich. So we have 7 yes and 3 no and 3 absent.
And will the minority report be the same on this one as well as the last?
Yes.
Yes.
Ought to pass.
And ought not to pass.
No, and ought,
Excuse me. Yes.
ought to pass.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
say, if you'll allow it, Representative Gramlich is back.
Oh, great. Yes, we'll allow it.
I presume you're looking for my vote. I lost my connection. Yes, not to pass.
That changes it to 8 yes.
Thank you, Representative. So I believe that closes the work session on LD 244. The only point that I want to bring up that I have on my little schedule here is a reminder about Friday morning's budget hearing for our committee with AFA at 10 a.m. You should have all received an invitation from AFA for that meeting for the Zoom link, as well as documents from Dan.
May I? When did we supposedly receive those? The documents from Dan, that is.
If I can, I emailed, it was this week. God, I've lost track of days.
Okay.
But I can send it out again. They've all been posted on the biennial budget materials subpage on the committee page.
Okay,
and
fine.
as Sabrina has indicated, I don't think we have received the Zoom link yet for Friday's public hearing.
Okay.
It will be sent out in advance, and then it will probably be sent out again the morning of. It'll be a panelist link like we've been using.
I might be mixing up my committee AFA hearings. My apologies.
If everyone is not completely exhausted after this, we had also planned on talking briefly about LD 203, the St. Croix bill.
Yes, you were going to do a language review with us.
So I've just sent out an email again. I wish it was a language review.
Just about the clarity
yes,
around.
So we had a work session. This is LD 203, Senator Moore's bill about increasing funding for the St. Croix International Waterway Commission. I've sent a copy of the text of the bill again and my bill analysis from last week. The bill was voted, I believe it was unanimously, ought to pass as amended to incorporate a fiscal note. As I went through the review processes after the fact, internally within my office, we realized that the bill, and if you go to the bill itself and look at the meat of the bill, in section 1 of the bill, there's an appropriation in each of the fiscal years 20 to 21, 21 to 22, and 22 to 23. We are currently in fiscal year 20 to 21. That's the current fiscal year. And absent this being emergency legislation, that appropriation will not be successful. This is something that I overlooked and I should have identified at the work session, but as it appears, the bill may have originally been proposed as an emergency, and then there was a change made, and there was some confusion in the process of removing that change. So I spoke with Senator Moore about this issue. She had said to me that her preference would be to have this proposal essentially mirror what is in the biennial budget. As you heard during the public hearing, I guess for lack of a better description, she's proposing this bill as a backup in case the increase in the biennial budget does not go through. And so for that reason, she would prefer to have this bill mirror what's in the biennial budget. And if you look at my bill analysis that I also included, I do include the portion of the biennial budget that pertains to the St. Croix International Waterway Commission. And the increased appropriation begins in the upcoming fiscal year, not the current fiscal year. So that would be FY 21 to 22 and ongoing. So what that all means is I think Senator Moore's preference would be to amend her bill to just to strike that current fiscal year appropriation, to strike the 20 to 21 appropriation. The committee, that was not part of the committee's vote. it's a joint rule question as to whether or not a change like this is something that's minor and technical, or is something substantive and requires reconsideration. So I'll defer to you all on that point.
Senator Bennett.
I'll defer to the House Chair. Thank you.
Representative Tucker. You're on mute, Representative. Representative, you're on mute.
Thank you. I believe that's a substantive change. It's a significant change from what was proposed to us earlier. We are all now aware of the difficulty. So I think at some appropriate time, we should have a motion to reconsider and pass the bill as amended by Mr. Tartikoff.
Representative O'Connor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Excuse me. Senator, I would make a motion that we reconsider this bill.
Senator Bennett.
I'll second that motion.
Any further discussion? Not seeing any. Do committee members feel ready for the vote? All right. Sabrina, I believe we'll need to do another roll call. Representative O'Connor, do you have another question? You're on mute.
I was going to make a motion that we vote to ought to pass as amended by this new amendment.
Okay. And then the second is from Senator Bennett.
Excuse me, we have to vote on the reconsideration first, right? Point of order.
Right. Thank you. Okay, so our first vote is to reconsider the bill. And then we will.
Senator Brenner,
Yes.
Representative Tucker,
Yes.
Senator Bennett,
Yes.
Representative Hanley,
Yes.
Senator Carney,
Yes.
Representative Bell,
Yes.
Representative Bloom, absent. Representative Dudera,
Yes.
Representative Gramlich, absent. Representative Johansson,
Yes.
Representative O'Connor,
Yes.
Representative Toole, absent. Representative Ziegler,
Yes.
ten yes, 3 absent.
Okay, now I believe we are ready for another motion. Yes, Representative O'Connor.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Senator. Or yeah. Anyway, I would like to move that we ought to pass as amended by the newest amendment from Dan and Marion and Senator Moore.
Senator Bennett?
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Any discussion? Not seeing any, we will go forward with a roll call, please.
Senator Brenner,
Yes.
Representative Tucker,
Yes.
Senator Bennett,
Yes.
Representative Hanley,
Yes.
Senator Carney,
Yes.
Representative Bell,
Yes.
Representative Bloom, absent. Representative Dudera,
Yes.
Representative Gramlich, absent. Representative Johansson,
Yes.
I need to see you, Representative.
that better?
Yes,
Yes.
thank you. Representative O'Connor,
Yes.
Representative Toole, absent, and Representative Ziegler.
Yes.
10 yes, 2 absent.
Thank you, Sabrina. Right. Yes, Senator Bennett.
I'm sorry. I think I heard Sabrina say 10 yes and 2 absent.
Yeah,
That
there's 3
doesn't
absent.
work.
I apologize.
All right, thank you.
Any additional thoughts this afternoon? All right, not seeing any. I'll take a motion to adjourn. Senator Bennett,
I'll move to adjourn.
Representative Tucker. Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you on Friday. Take care.